Welcome to Transformative Principal, where you learn how to be a leader and not just a manager of a to-do list. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can find me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. Sometimes in the mastermind, we have a conversation and it goes all over the place and it meets so many different needs. The feedback from a session that I'm going to share with you now is one of those times. One of the members said, when I asked what was most useful to you today, she said, the discussion about accountability, engagement, the links, the refinement of my own goals, talking about balance and managing remotely. All of these things have been challenges that she has been facing, and she was able to get help from all of those things from one short hour meeting where she was able to close her door, get just-in-time professional development, and then open the door and face the challenges that she's facing as a school leader. I'd love for you to join us. Go to jethrojones.com/mastermind and let's schedule a time to talk and see if this is the right thing for you. Once again, that's jethrojones.com/mastermind. This week's episode is brought to you by John Catt Educational. You can get a discount on the awesome books that they have available by going to us.johncattbookshop.com and using the code Transformative30. That'll save you 30% on any order. That's us.johncattbookshop.com, and the code is Transformative30. Welcome to Transformative Principal. Today I am excited to have Vijay Ravindran on the podcast. How'd I do pronouncing your last name? I'm all worried now.
You did great.
Okay, good. All right. So Vijay created a awesome app that is called Florio. And so Vijay, I'll let you tell a little bit about the story of that and how that can be an app to help kids with autism. We'll start there.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on. Florio as a company was started 4 years ago. The company is inspired by my son, who is 10 and on the autism spectrum. And the idea for the system that we've developed using virtual reality came from his first experience using a virtual reality headset back in late 2015. He really likes maps and navigation, and I had seen that Google Street View had just come out in VR, and so I had him try it out using a Samsung Gear VR, and he really liked it. He started engaging in pretend play for the first time, which is a delayed skill for a lot of kids with autism, and that triggered the idea that what if virtual reality could be a therapy medium for kids like him. And so what we have today is a application that runs on both iPhone and iPad. It's an app, but it's really a system that combines the use of an iPhone and a virtual reality headset with an iPad that talks over the network and enables a supervising adult to coach through the iPad therapy sessions or training sessions for a child as they enter into the virtual reality environment and then experience scenes that work on different developmental skills.
Yeah, I really like that. And so being able to have a coach in there with you. I mean, I just downloaded the app and used it myself with, some Google Cardboard that I had sitting around. And it was just the trial part was a neat experience. And so my daughter has Down syndrome, and she exhibits some of the same characteristics of kids who are on the autism spectrum. And of course, they're different and they have different abilities and skills and developmental levels and all that kind of stuff. But the idea of doing therapy through VR sounds like a really cool thing. Can you talk a little bit more about how that actually works and what the mechanics of that are?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And you're right. Once you start diving into this world of people with developmental delays, you realize there's actually quite a bit of overlapping treatments across the board. When we first started this path, our vision was that VR could help in two different ways. The first was that there's opportunities to create the type of therapies that are being done face-to-face using fun animated characters. Kids with autism go through hundreds to thousands of hours of therapy, and it can get pretty monotonous and patronizing at some point. And so, our first objective, let's just make this more fun. Let's figure out a way to recreate what's being done with toys and play paradigms face-to-face and create it in VR to make it much more fun. The second area And so we have scenes that, work on things like eye contact or how to imitate another person. But we're able to use cartoon characters, fun animals. We can do silly stuff, and we can use animations and rewards in line to really spur that. The second area that we saw VR is very powerful, and it's also a major area of developmental focus today, is around social and life skills. So we have lots of therapy to help a child with the basics like eye contact in today's world. What we don't have is that as they get older and older, how to help them with those much more subtle social skills, or how to help them in safety situations that are hard to replicate in a therapist office. And so we're able to, in virtual reality, we can create situations that you can't recreate in a therapist office. So we can have a child go through a law enforcement encounter and practice talking to that police officer in a way that'll keep them safe. We can have them practice crossing the street and looking both ways, but without the consequences of messing up in the real world.
Yeah.
And for the social skills, we can put you in the school, in the cafeteria, in the classroom. But moreover, today for traditional therapy, a child is essentially taught by an adult. And so I've seen with my own son where he will be able to handle a situation if it's adult to child, but then on the playground, when it's another child, he's not able to necessarily traverse that. And in VR, we can create the characters to match the children in age. We can vary the race and ethnicity. We can make sure that both genders are represented so that we can create actually a much more comprehensive set of interactions.
Yeah. So I love those examples that you shared about being able to go into these situations where it's hard for them to practice that in a therapy session, especially with consequences that are there. And so I've seen so many amazing creative things from my own daughter's therapists with different ways of helping her learn different things. And she's doing some physical therapy right now, and she painted this giant picture. And the whole purpose of the giant picture was to help her put equal weight on each of her legs. And that was the whole purpose, but she didn't even know that's what she was working on, and she couldn't comprehend that that's what she needed to work on. But the therapist was going above and beyond, doing these great things to help her with that. And I love that this app now gives therapists an additional opportunity to incorporate those things in as well. And I think that the truly life-saving features can be really important. And you shared an example of not being able to associate an interaction with an adult with a peer, like out on the playground. And I've seen that so many times with students at school, but also with my own child, where when it's somebody who's bigger standing over them, telling them this is how things need to happen, they've been able to be successful. But then when it's a peer, then that just goes away. And then with privacy issues and things like that, you can't always get those peers to come into the therapy room and participate in those same activities. So I love what you're doing with that. What are some of the stories that you've seen where kids have used this and have been able to grow because of using Florio?
Yeah, we've got some great stories. I'll just add one thing also from what you just said, is that you hinted at this, but one of the really fascinating and powerful things we've seen is that once you put this in the hands of professionals like therapists and special education teachers, they use the scenes in ways that we don't necessarily have predicted. They're able to come up with ways to help kids. And as a lead into your question, we've seen that play out. We had one school system in Pennsylvania that's been using the system successfully use Florio with a PTSD and schizophrenic child that was having major fears of going outside. And our street crossing lessons ended up helping that child get enough confidence that they could actually start with the next phase of acclimatization to the outside world they wanted to with the child. We've had kids who have been mostly nonverbal interact with this and literally get feedback that they've never seen the child interact in traditional therapy in an as engaged way as they have here. But going beyond the anecdotal, we have made a big emphasis around research. We, pretty soon after starting the company, started looking at research partners, and two important ones early on were a special education school in New Jersey called Celebrate the Children, and Children's Hospital of Philadelphia Center for Autism Research. And so with Celebrate the Children, a special needs school in northern New Jersey, we held our first study where we had 12 kids go through 5 weeks of 3 times a week intervention. And these were kids with moderate to severe autism. And we were able to work on their eye contact using lessons we developed. We were able to do benchmarking before and 4 weeks after the study. And we're able to show improvement in 10 of the 12 kids. And we're proud to say that those results were published in JMIR Pediatrics and Parenting, a medical journal, last summer. And separately with Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, we're the recipient of what's called an NIH Fast Track grant. So we received a $1.7 million grant in 2017 that has helped fund really groundbreaking research at the intersection of the autism community and virtual reality. We're in the 3rd year of that research now and in a randomized clinical trial, which is unfortunately a little bit on pause at the moment, given COVID-19. So we'll see when we're able to get back to doing that. But we've been able to show that Florio is safe and highly enjoyable in that study based on the phase 1. And the first year of the phase 2 at CHOP, we were in a controlled treatment structure where we were going head-to-head against a well-established video-based therapy. And so we've made it a priority early on to focus on gathering the type of research that also shows that Florio is worth the time of these kids. And so
John Catt Educational supports high-quality teaching and learning by providing publications that are research-based, practical, and focused on the key topics proven essential in today's and tomorrow's schools. Visit us.johncattbookshop.com to see the latest publications, whose exciting ideas include overcoming the extrovert ideal in our schools, creating bottom-up transformation that promotes buy-in from all educators, and improving formal and informal continuous learning opportunities for teachers. These books, used by educators of all roles across North America and worldwide, amplify fresh, engaging voices with practical strategies to create transformative change. Learn more in our show notes. Yeah, I just think that is so fantastic. And it's something, the reason why I wanted to talk to you on this podcast and share this with principals around the country is that I had never thought of using VR as a tool for helping kids with autism. And I've been, as an educator, been baffled for years about how to reach specific kids, how to help them, how to do things that would accelerate their growth, and all while recognizing that just because they may not be able to communicate with us doesn't mean that they don't have feelings and concerns and passions and desires and all that kind of stuff. And really trying to find a way that we can adapt what we're doing to help them. And so when I read about Florio, I thought that it was just such a great way to do that. And so now as we think about doing this at scale or moving this into other places across the country in schools and in private therapy sessions and at children's hospitals, what are the challenges you see to people adopting Florio for working with kids with autism specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, so we're today, we have 18 clinic and school customers. And I would say the biggest challenge is helping both families and the professionals that work with kids with autism think about how you can schedule and integrate a product like ours when these kids are already scheduled to the hilt and their time is very precious. And using virtual reality is still not commonplace. And so there is some apprehension around the technology that, in many cases, we carry the burden of being the first virtual reality experience for both the adults and the children. And so when we're presenting this, it's the first time they've used VR, not to the kids, but to the adults. In many cases, the kids have already used VR because of games, but for parents or teachers or therapists, this is new. And so that ends up being a challenge. Excitingly, we announced last week that the system, which again is really two pieces, a smartphone and a virtual reality headset and an iPad for the adult, that we now support the iPad running over the network in a teletherapy or video conferencing style of deployment. And so
Oh, that's very cool.
Given the challenges happening across the world right now, with being in the same place at the same time, that these kids are suffering where they're not receiving the therapies that they were 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so we think Florio has a big role that it could play in helping by delivering behavioral therapy over virtual reality. But yeah, I think virtual reality is still a new technology, so there's a barrier there. There's an investment around equipment, which we've tried to bring the cost down dramatically through a partnership with Sprint, the mobile carrier, where we're sourcing refurbished equipment. But I would say the biggest barrier above all else is that a child with autism has a very busy schedule with their existing therapies on top of schooling. And so thinking through not only is whether Florio can help, but whether it's worth integrating that into their already busy schedules in some manner is a big decision.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's not just one specific type of therapy either. Depending on the child's ability level, it could be a lot of different therapies that, you may not, somebody else, who's not actively engaged with that with their own child may not realize how many different therapies you really need for that student to be successful. So, yeah. So Vijay, I think what you've done is really great. Can you tell us how to get to learn more about Florio?
Yeah. You can go to our website, floriotech.com, FLOREOTECH.com. From there, you can basically register to get more information from someone on the team. You can also go directly through the App Store if you have an iPhone and an iPad and download the app. And then you'll need to talk to us through a link to figure out the appropriate subscriptions. So we have subscription plans for the software, both for enterprises like schools and clinics, as well as for families who are looking to do home supplemental therapy.
And so that's the route that I went. I just downloaded the app, tried it out for myself, gave it to my kids to try a little bit of, and they enjoyed it. And there's enough there that you could see if there's a engagement piece right from the beginning. And so I could tell immediately that all of my kids, not just my daughter with Down syndrome, were able to engage and understand how to work with it right away. And it was really neat to see them be able to just pick it up and start doing stuff with it. So the last question that I ask Vijay is, what is one thing that a principal can do this week to be a transformative leader like you?
Well, I mean, this is a very special week, isn't it? Given what the world is going to. I think starting with understanding the unique situations that families and students are in right now, especially working from home, parents trying to juggle working from home while their kids are being homeschooled through some combination of packets. And, I think many years ago, I worked at Amazon and we had an expression that you start with the customer and work backwards. And I think that is extra true right now because we've never really imagined being in the situation that we're in as a society where we're trapped inside as we are. So that's a big piece. But, for me, what's really motivated me to start the company and work on this for the last 4 years is knowing how much potential these kids have and what's possible if they can get the right tools delivered to them and the professionals and family around them. And so that's been very motivating.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, Vijay, thank you so much for your time. This has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate all the work that you are doing. Thanks so much for being part of Transformative Principal.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to our valued partner, John Catt Educational. If you are a leader looking to make transformative change by providing yourself and your teachers with professional development that is research-based and rigorous, yet easy to digest and full of practical strategies, check out the latest publications from John Catt. Visit us.johncattbookshop.com to find information or learn more in our show notes.